And welcome to the Wealthy Ironworker Studios. This podcast episode today, number 5, is a favorite of mine. I enjoy talking about it. It's one of the more prominent articles. And today's podcast episode is passion versus opportunity. So grab a chair, come on into the studio. Let's have a discussion. And welcome to the Wealthy Ironworker Podcast. Today we are talking about episode number 5, and this is one that I'm excited to talk about. This one, more than all the other ones, is going to be far more broadly applicable, and this is applicable to, well, anybody who's listening, to be honest with you. It has far more reaching implications than just those individuals who are looking at the trades. Now, the purpose that I bring it up is to really highlight the benefit of the trades and what it is that you should be pursuing. But long and the short, there's a lot of opportunity. And today's podcast episode number 5, is one of my favorites, and it's called Passion versus Opportunity. Now, if you go to Google or DuckDuckGo and you type in the words passion versus opportunity, the article that I wrote probably about 4 years ago now comes up on Google's first page for a number of reasons. But I'm excited about that because there's a lot to be said. This idea that we're going to ask young people, all right, that, okay, what is it you want to do for a living? And earlier, I think it was maybe podcast episode number 1, as a matter of fact, that we even ask young people, like, what is it that you want to do? And then we stop right there is a significant problem. And the major reason why is because we don't do our own data analysis, right? We could sit here and say all day long, well, what do you want to do for a living? And they're basing what it is that they want to do for a career, number one, what they're interested in. Sounds good so far. The major disconnect, however, is when we track back to what many young people have been told over the course of growing up, is that you can do whatever it is that you want to do, which is a lie. And then we tell them, well, you can be anything that you want to be, which is also a lie. I get the root of it, right? It's to get people dreaming. It's to get them thinking about the things that are out there, to expand their horizons and supposedly not to limit them, to a smaller pool of places to pick from. But the debilitating part of that is that we give unrealistic, aspirations and expectations. We say, well, you can be anything that you want to be. Well, is there a market for that? And then likewise, well, you can do anything that you want to do. I'd say the same. I'd ask the same question and say the same thing. And let's be blunt here. Not everybody can be X, Y, or Z. Pick whatever it is. Some people have very lofty aspirations. And when we review that, there are people who will come up with these statements, right? These shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars, and maybe you'll land amongst the moon or whatever. And I suppose, again, that it's designed to get people thinking outside of, like, okay, well, just your hometown or whatever. But we don't fully think about the ramifications of what we say and what we tell young people. I already detailed this in the last couple of episodes, where we sit here and tell young people this: you got to go to college, you got to do this, you got to do that, and then they do it, and it doesn't pan out for them. Right. And then they go, well, what's going on here in this scenario, in this situation? And then we add insult to injury by telling them, well, you're lazy, when in large parts they're doing and following the advice that we gave them. So too with this particular, subject matter, we don't do ourselves nor any young person a favor by just simply telling them, hey, listen, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, and you can be whatever it is you want to be. It's just not true. It's just not true. And let me give you a clearer example of what I'm talking about. This is usually when you see people winning awards, right? You're talking, and I'm going to use 3 different fields to really drive this home. if you go, Charles, I was watching a video recently. Charles Barkley was talking about whenever he went to an inner city school, and he would ask the students there, what is it that you want to be for, when you grow up? What do you want to do for a living? And he said 90% of the kids that he talked to said they wanted to be a professional athlete. That was what he said. And then he said, when I compare that to what, a majority white people, when you ask them what they want to do, they want to be astronauts or whatever. First off, that's not true anyway. If you ask the majority of them, they want to be YouTubers. But when you go, we can even lump YouTubers into the whole mix as well, right? Whether it's YouTubers, whether it's athletes, musicians, or actors. It's always those professions, the ones that seem to have the loudest voice and they have the most erroneous information to peddle from a very large platform. And our youth just seem to absorb it like a sponge. Well, that famous person on that stage said that this is the way that they got there, and this, I should never give up, so this is what I should do. So you see some famous person on a stage winning some award, whether it's an actor, a musician, or an athlete, and they peddle out this dribble like, well, don't ever let anybody tell you to give up on your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you to not pursue your passion. This is where the passion versus opportunity moniker came from. Don't ever let anybody tell you not to pursue your passion. You should always pursue your passion. Look at me, I'm living proof, etc. Blah, 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 blah. What they don't tell young people, and quite frankly, what we as adults of our own children don't tell young people, is that in reality, for every one actor, for every one musician, for every one athlete that's made it, there's at least 1 million, probably more, that haven't. So from a statistical probability, is it likely then that you're going to become a professional athlete, a professional musician, or a professional actor? Probably not. The statistical probability is exceedingly high that you are not going to become one of those people. So the counter argument should be, when we are talking to young people, and young people, this is for you, so listen up. When we're talking to you and we're asking you, what is it that you want to do for a living? It's not a bad question in and of itself to ask. Okay, tell me what it is that you're interested in, right? As a matter of fact, as parents, one of the things that we ought to be doing in raising our kids, aside from the fact that we should be raising them with ethical and moral principles and guidelines to become contributing members into society, it's also fostering an environment that encourages the things that they're interested in. Finding out what those are through trial and error, through exploration, seeing what they're interested in, and nurture that gift. But then when you go and ask them, hey, what is it that you want to do for a living? These are questions and situations and lifestyle, topics that we should explore all throughout their teen years, even before, as a matter of fact, leading up to the point when they become an adult and say, okay, we've talked about this for a while. We have looked at what you like to do. We looked at what you're interested in, and based on the back and forth dialogue between me and you, which I might add, the vast majority of parents do not do. They simply rely on educators, guidance counselors, and even ridiculous voices that shouldn't have any influence whatsoever in your kid's life. And then, of course, there are parents who just feel like, well, the answer is just going to fall out of the sky if I just leave them alone. But in this example, I'm sitting here having these conversations with you, the young person, that now you need to begin to seriously consider what it is that you want to do for a living. Now, we take into your consideration what you are telling me, what you're interested in. I'll give you a very personal example. My own daughter talks about liking geology and said, well, I want to be a geologist. And she said it for a few years now, and she's only 9 years old. Now, if that answer remains as she gets older, the next set of questions, the next things that we ought to be looking at as responsible parents, helping to usher them in, her in particular, into the career field and into society is there an opportunity to do what you want to do? In so much that we can, if I can line up what you want to do with what there is an opportunity available to do, well, now we've taken these two and we've merged them together, and now we can march forward. But in reality, that usually doesn't happen. And all you need, we'll look at some statistics down the line, but in reality, that's not the case. What usually happens is young people will tell you, this is what I want to do for a living. And then we as parents check out thinking that guidance counselors and other individuals who have influence over our kids and in their lives have their best interest at heart. And that's usually not the case. And I've got 1.7 trillion reasons why that's not the case. And your young person will say, well, I want to do this for a living. To which the usual response seems to be, well, let's look at where you should go to college at that will foster that ability. And we take no stock at all into what opportunity is actually out there for young people. Now, for those of you who are parents, take note, because what we ought to be doing, instead of simply stopping at what is it you want to do for a living, the next question ought to be, well, let's explore the data, wherever it takes us, and see if there actually is opportunity to pursue what it is that you're telling me to do, that you want to do. And we fall short so many times as parents. And it's kind of sickening, to be blunt with you, because we're not doing our due diligence as parents to say, hey, I hear what you're saying. I know that you like this. I know that you have a significant interest in this. But the data just doesn't indicate that that's going to be a profession that you can support yourself going forward. So we need to evaluate then, not exactly what you want to do. Let's look at what opportunities are out there. And I tell young people this all the time. I'll run into parents who will ask me questions about their kids and, what they're talking about. And it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me what you tell me you want to do for a living. I don't care if you want to flip burgers. I don't care if you want to be in the trades. I don't care if you want to be an attorney. It doesn't matter to me what you tell me you want to do. The very first question that I have for you is there an opportunity to do what you're telling me? And the next question, hot on the heels of that, should be, can you make it in this world based on that? Because there are scores of people who actually want to, quote unquote, pursue a job, pursue a career field, if they can even find the opportunity. And then we're going to find another difficult question, which is, can you actually support yourself on this? If you were to recall back in episode number 2, we talked about the stigma and how 51% of individuals said, okay, well, I want to be a barista as opposed to being a welder. You're not going to convince me at all that somebody who is a barista is going to make more money and therefore be able to be more financially secure and be able to support themselves and a family than a welder. I don't buy it at all. As an iron worker, I know plenty of guys that welding is a part of what they do, and they're capable and able of supporting families on what they make. Now, if you're sitting as a barista and you've got 4 roommates and you're barely scrapping by, it's not about what you want to do. And at that point, we ought to go beyond the next question, which is there an opportunity for it? And that's what happens. You hear people ad nauseum as if it's just something that we toss out there. Follow your passion. Pursue your passions. Don't ever let anybody tell you to give up on your dreams. Listen, and you're going to hear it here. I'm not the first person, and I'm not the only one who's talking about this, but in so much that I can have somebody watch this video or listen to this podcast and walk away and it's got their gears turning and they've started to really seriously think about this, then it's been successful. Pursue your passions when it comes to your hobbies and your interests. Your interests first, and then, so few of them become hobbies. But pursue your passions for them. Leave the career and that which you need to support yourself and others that are going to be dependent on you on opportunity. Not just opportunity as far as whether you can actually get a job and that opportunity career field, but is there opportunity to make money to support others? We talk an awful lot about passion. We don't talk nowhere near enough about opportunity. And that's a significant problem as far as I'm concerned. And the adults in the room never really stand up and say, we need to have honest and open discourse about these opportunities that we're just glossing over. We don't even get to that level of the conversation. It's just a matter of, I'll take what you say you want to do at face value. Now let's look at some of those. Let's look at those three specific fields that I mentioned, right? Musicians, athletes, movie stars. Now, from a musician perspective, only if you're under 25, I was looking on a website prior to this, 0.01% are going to find an opportunity to actually become a successful musician to some degree. Even if it's a professional musician that may or may not be quote unquote successful. If you're over 25, now it has gone to 0.00001%. All you need to do is go to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm sure there are other places, but Nashville was one of the last places I've been to. You go downtown and you walk amongst all of the bars and the various eating establishments. And, multiple places are 3 to 4 stories tall. And every single floor has a band playing with the hopes of being seen, scouted, and given an opportunity. And I don't go into those places, so I can't really compile age, right? But the likelihood that somebody is older that's going to get a break as opposed to someone younger, I mean, let's be honest here and let's be real for a minute. And taking that a step back, how many of those individuals that are playing in those venues or any of the venues across the entire country are actually going to get selected? It is a significant few. So from a statistical probability, those of you who want to be musicians, I'm not telling you that you can't do it. I'm just telling you the reality is it's almost unheard of that you are going to be able to do it. Now let's take athletes. 1% of 1%. 1% of 1% of those people who are interested in sports are going to make it to professional sports where they're going to make enough money to be able to support. Now, don't get me wrong. If you can make it, then you're going to make an enormous amount of money. But how many people don't? I think the statistic is 2% of all NCAA individuals go on to professional sports. Well, how many make it to that? And so you have to be good at least. It's bad advice to tell young people, well, you can make it as a professional athlete. Maybe you can, but be real in your understanding, right? And if you recall back to episode 1, I specifically said, okay, well, if you get to the point where you're 18 and you tell me, well, I don't really know what I want to do for a living, I'm not all that surprised, because I think we do ourselves a disservice when we go, okay, well, you're 18 years old. You're very young. You likely don't have any real world experience. And those of you who do have very little working experience, especially in today's age of comfort. And so you don't know what's out there. You don't know the reality. And, add insult to injury, chances are your parents didn't really do any real significant discussions with you or deep dives into the data about what opportunity is out there. So if at the age of 18, 19, you decide, okay, well, I'm going to go and try and be a musician, If you haven't been interested in music or have any significant talent, I would not go for it. But if you've got at least a little bit of experience, the age of 18, 19, instead of going to college, that's probably the time to go do it before you start getting saddled with significant responsibilities. But go and pursue it under the guise of the likelihood that I'm going to achieve this is statistically small. Therefore, I should not waste my entire life in pursuit of an unattainable goal. Maybe I give it a shot for a smaller amount of time to see if I am going to actually get anywhere with this. But just don't go out under false pretenses, which is what many, many young people do. And they seem to do it with the blessing of a lot of other people. Don't give up on your passions, etc. From a career perspective, it's kind of piss poor advice. So let's move on to movie stars. While I was doing, the show notes for this, and I was doing I was looking for a reputable site. I found it on Yahoo that said there was a department of mathematicians that looked at movie stars from the 1880s to today. I think it came out in 2023, so it was last year. And here are some of the findings that they revealed from a mathematician perspective. Excuse me. Only 2% of all movie stars have made a living. Not 2% of the population, only 2% of those who actually pursue being a movie star. And that includes all the wash-ups, not the ones that, made it, but just that includes everybody. 90% were unemployed at any given time. 90%. And the likelihood that you're going to be a Dwayne The Rock Johnson or Matthew McConaughey or somebody who makes Robert Downey Jr., whatever, somebody who makes enough money that can bridge that gap from project to project or even make enough money to where you ain't got to work another day in your life is infinitesimally small. And then there's this one. 70% of all the people who have tried, to become an actor or actress have a single-year career. A single-year career. So if you decide you listen to somebody, doing an award show or whatever, telling you not to give up on your passion, you think you can act because, your drama teacher at your local high school said you're, like the cat's meow, right? The best thing since sliced bread, etc. Statistically speaking, even if you actually get a chance to audition and to be in a TV show or whatever, 70% of those who start have a single-year career. And that's it. They wash up and wash out. And so it begs the question then, is it really smart to approach what you're going to do for the rest of your life in which you have to provide for not just yourself, but everybody else? Is it wise then to say, okay, well, let's pursue our passions for our career? By now, I would think we ought to hear a resounding and a hearty no, it's not. Instead, we should be looking at where the opportunity is. We should be looking at the data. We should be looking at where the shortfalls are. And then if you don't understand this principle, take an economics class. It's the law of supply and demand. Where there is a lot of demand and few in the supply area, wages go up. But when you pour into the market on the demand side a huge amount of supply, the demand goes down. And that's where we're at with college degrees. It was Washington Post. Yeah, I was looking at my show notes. The Washington Post, this was about two or 3 years ago, had an article out where they said only 27% of those with degrees are in jobs with their major. And this is not surprising to me at all with this huge push to go, okay, well, you got to go to college to get a good job. And so educational quality is reduced to allow for the increased influx of individuals to come into higher education. And now we have a massive influx of not just people, but also degrees. And the importance of those degrees has been overinflated for the sole purpose of bringing in more money into those institutions, thereby cheapening the product, the end product. I forget how long ago it was that I heard this saying, but it's one that kind of, you go on the internet, you can find it anywhere, where it talks about the master's degree is the new bachelor's. Well, why is that? Somebody ought to pause and go, well, why is that the case? Why do they say that the master's degree is the new bachelor's if the importance of the bachelor degree has been overinflated? Now, sociologists like Andrew Hacker, he's got a couple books actually that I thought are really great. Both of them I've done book reviews on in the book review section on the website. One of them is called The Math Myth and Other STEM Delusions, and the other one is called Higher Education. Well, in higher education, it's a pretty interesting, foray into university and colleges across the country, where he takes a hard line look at data, and essentially, because he's like 98 years old or whatever, what used to be the case 30, 40 years ago is you would have individuals going into college not for effectively useless degrees that you see that are everywhere today. Basket weaving, I'm just making things up. But you had liberal arts degrees. And the purpose of liberal arts degrees was to educate you, and on top of that, and probably even more important than that, was to hone and strengthen your critical thinking skills. That's what you really want to have, is robust critical thinking skills. Well, if you fast forward from, late 70s, even earlier on, right, to today's time frame, there are few colleges that seriously focus on promoting rigorous debate, rigorous communication, dialogue, whether you agree with one another or not, to strengthen those cognitive thinking skills. And what happens then is that when you go into the workforce and you've gone to college, you've done your duty, quote unquote, gone to college because you got to get a good job, and then you come out, you can't find a job in the chosen study. Well, number one, nobody ever told you, right, that just because you're interested in this, that means that there's going to be a job at the other end of this. And number two, just because you're interested in studying for this doesn't even mean there's an actual opportunity on the other end of this. And number three, the downfall of what seriously has taken place is that young people in general who go to college, and there's a lot of cases to be made that they're not even colleges anymore in the traditional sense. They're more indoctrination camps where individuals sit here and adopt specific policies that have really no effective good use for them in the workforce. Most of those young people that come out of there, and I've got to find the articles because I remember reading a few of them a few years back. A lot of young people, when they come out of higher educational institutions, and I use the term loosely, what happens then is they don't know how to take constructive criticism. They don't know how to fail because they've been propped up. They've been told they can do anything they want. They've been told that you can be whatever you want to be. And when actual constructive criticism comes out, they fall to pieces. They don't know how to fail. And this unnatural fear of failure that we have in this country is ridiculous because you learn so much if you're willing. Caveat, if you're willing. You learn a tremendous amount by failure. You learn a lot by failing. And when you have a failure, wise is the person who learns from it. Now, why do I bring all this up? Because when we're talking about passion versus opportunity, scores of people have bought into the lie and they want to do this, pick whatever it is that they're interested in, whatever it is they want to pursue. And then they're surprised when they get out, haven't done any real world research on their own, and parents haven't helped them out at all, nor are those individuals who are supposed to, right? They have actual positions within academia, albeit at the government mandated level. that are supposed to be looking out for your best interest, and maybe they don't even know what they're talking about. You get out of college, you've got debt, and you got all these passions, but it doesn't amount to anything. You want to know why? Because there's no opportunity at the end of the tunnel. That's why. A far better starting point is to go, where is the opportunity? Where are the winds of opportunity blowing? And that's where I want to go. Now, one of the major reasons why I'm talking about it on this platform within this brand here is because in episode number 2, I talked about how the AWS, referencing a survey from Metal Supermarkets, talked about they predicted a quote unquote welder shortage of 430,000 by 2030. Right now, I hear overall the usual number that's tossed around is 500,000 individuals in the skilled trade shortage. Now, by 2030, the number that you hear projected is 2 to 3 million. Tell me there is an opportunity in that 2 to 3 million for individuals to back up and punt, to look at it and go, well, you know what? Like I was talking to my own adult son, I said, you hard-headed fool. It doesn't matter what you want to do. You've been lied to. Your whole entire generation has been lied to. I've been telling you for years, you need to find opportunity wherever it's at. And then use your passion, if you even have it, to succeed. That's what you want to do. That's where you want to go. You do not want to get stuck on the proverbial rut that is, well, let me pursue my passion. Instead, far better advice is to tell young people, I hear what you're saying. I understand what your interests are. Now let's have a look and see if there's opportunity. First, actual career opportunity. And number 2, opportunity to support you and a potential family down the line. If there isn't, then we need to reevaluate where we're at. And we have significant problems in this industry. Because you can go to college and you can rack up $100,000 of non-bankruptcy debt. And you've postponed your launch into adulthood. And the reason you've done it for a number of reasons that we've already outlined earlier in this podcast episode and in previous ones. But the reality is no one probably never asked you the question, where is the opportunity? Have you looked for the opportunity in all of this? When you begin to go out into the workforce, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Is there opportunity? And if there's hardy opportunity, like there is in the trades today, you should pursue that with all vigor. Now, having said that, I've been in the trades for 22 years now, and I have never seen the amount of opportunity that we have today. And if we continue down the trajectory we're in, the opportunity will only increase. And looking back at all of the information that I'm aware of, as far as manufacturing onshoring, replacing those individuals who are retiring, the monstrous age gap, as well as infrastructure investment, whatever, we've got, I would probably say, at least 2 decades worth of robust work that we're staring in the face, and we don't have individuals coming in. So now, not only from an industry perspective, do we have to deal with this question that most young people and adults don't even help them ask, which is, where's the opportunity? We also have to deal with the perception of whatever. So we have our work cut out for us, right? We have our work cut out for us from an industry perspective, and you young people getting ready to go in, or even if you're changing careers. I talked about this in episode 1. Where is the opportunity at? Don't listen to the loud clamoring voices on the stage who, quite honestly, they're the very, very, very fortunate individuals who lucky breaks, right place, right time, whatever. Instead, for career purposes, find out where the opportunity is and pursue that. Have your passions all day long, but have it from a hobby perspective, not from a career perspective. It's not good advice. I have run into, and I'm sure you have too, you the listener or the viewer, individuals who are 45 and older chasing a dream, don't have a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out of because they followed ill advice. Far better for us to sit here and think and use the data that we have available and the mini computers in our hands to do the necessary work and look at where are the opportunities, and that's where I want to go. This is the Wealthy Ironworker, Passion versus Opportunity, episode number 5. Share it, spread it, internalize it, have those discussions with those people that you know, and come back for more.